Hello, I'm Yana and you're watching Behind the Scenes of the Forgotten Magic of Bulgaria, part of the Thistles and Sunflowers project by Bulgarian Cultural and Educational Centre Scotland. The Forgotten Magic of Bulgaria is a one-woman show which is currently in the process of being created, and it's set to premiere in Edinburgh in the spring of 2022. It is inspired by the rich and captivating Bulgarian magical folklore, much of which has been forgotten over the years, and it's not well popularized today. The show will also draw parallels with Scottish mythology and folklore and Scottish magical creatures. So, in short, if you enjoy things like folk tales, legends, magic, and the strange and wonderful world of superstition, this show just might be for you. As the one woman who has been tasked with creating the one-woman show, I'd like to take you on a little journey with me as I create this piece of theatre through a series of behind-the-scenes videos in which I will share some of my inspiration, some of the process of creating the show, some of the challenges, and most of all, many of the incredibly interesting stories that are going to inspire this piece, both Bulgarian and Scottish. But before we get into the couple of stories that I want to share with you today, let me first wish you a Happy New Year, or Čestita Nova Godina in Bulgarian. Now, 2022 has been designated Scotland's Year of Stories, which of course is extremely appropriate for our show, which is going to be inspired by stories. So 2022 is going to be the year in which we celebrate all stories that are inspired by Scotland, created in Scotland, or in any way connected to Scotland. And the Forgotten Magic of Bulgaria, even though it has Bulgaria in the name, will also have Scotland in its heart. So I feel that this project is very much part of Scotland's Year of Stories. So to kick it off properly, I'm going to share two stories with you, one Scottish and one Bulgarian. They're both very short, but you will have to excuse my Scottish places pronunciation. I'm sure I'm going to muck them up. Please forgive me. So first I'm going to read you this little piece from this book called Scottish Folk Tales, published by Lomond Books, and it is about a Scottish mythological creature called the Bogle. The Bogle is a freakish spirit who delights rather to perplex and frighten mankind than either to serve or seriously to hurt them. Shellycoat, a spirit who resides in the waters and has given his name to many a rock and stone upon the Scottish coast, belongs to the class of Bogles. When he appeared, he seemed to be decked with marine productions, and in particular with shells, whose clattering announced his approach. From this circumstance he derived his name. One of his pranks is thus narrated. Two men, on a very dark night, approaching the banks of the Eric, heard a doleful voice from its waves repeatedly exclaim, "Lost! Lost!" They followed the sound, which seemed to be the voice of a drowning person, and, to their infinite astonishment, they found that it ascended the river. Still they continued, during a long and tempestuous night, to follow the cry of the malicious sprite, and arriving, before morning's dawn, at the very sources of the river, the voice was now heard descending the opposite side of the mountain in which they arise. The fatigued and deluded travelers now relinquished the pursuit, and had no sooner done so than they heard Shellycoat applauding in loud bursts of laughter his successful roguery. The spirit was supposed particularly to haunt the old house of Gorenbury, situated on the river Hermitage in Lettisdale. So this is the Scottish tale that I wanted to share with you about this wonderful creature. And now, moving on to a rather more sinister creature from Bulgarian folklore called the ustro. I think most Bulgarians today wouldn't have even heard this word. So from what I can gather, and there's very limited information, an ustro is kind of a combination between a werewolf and a vampire. So they do drink blood, but they look like humans most of the time. In some tales they can also transform into wolves, but the most interesting thing about them, and the way to tell that somebody is an ustro, is that they cannot speak or move at all on a Saturday. So there's a lot of tales of women marrying one of those creatures and even having children with them, and then they suddenly realize that their husband or the children have blood on their mouths and they can't move and speak on Saturday, so that they realize they married an evil creature and they order them killed. So here's one of the more interesting stories, which feels a little bit more like a fairy tale about an ustro. I'm going to translate as I go along, so please forgive the mistakes. Oh, I forgot to say, this is from a very old book called Bulgarian Folk Art, which was published, I believe, in 1963, the year my mom was born, by the Bulgarian writer publishing house in Sofia. And this is a very, very rich resource for me, because these are folk tales which have not been in any way modified. They were written down exactly as the people interviewed told them in the villages. So basically the creators of this book went around and asked people to tell them the stories that they knew about different places and magical creatures, all the different legends and beliefs that they had about the creation of the world, all sorts of things, and they were written down exactly as they were heard, often in the original dialect. So a lot of these tales I can't even properly read because I don't know what some of the words mean. It is Bulgarian, but it's a very specific local dialect. This one I can read. So this one is about an ustro, and it goes like this. An ustro, who had transformed into his human form, was very polite and very charming. So he went from village to village and he went around the woods, and whenever he met somebody, he asked them to basically become brothers, sort of, not literally speaking, but you know, to become really, really good friends. There's a word in Bulgarian, so he wanted to, for them to да се побратимят. So that's how they become brothers. So in the olden times, this was a sign of respect and politeness, and so nobody said no, basically. So they had this ceremony, and during this ceremony, they exchanged rings, kind of like a wedding ceremony, except you do it with a friend, somebody that you want to be close friends with. Nobody suspected that the rings that the ustro gave them were enchanted, and they in a very, very sinister way. So once you put the ring on, the ring became very, very small and you couldn't take it off anymore. And incredible misfortune was soon to befall this new brother of the ustro, because what happened was, once night fell, the ustro came out looking for blood, and he started shouting, "Oi!" And then whichever ring was nearest out of all the people that he had become brothers with, that ring started shouting back, "Oi!" And so this is how the ustro knew where the person was. And so he went there and he killed him and drank his blood. But one night, one of these new brothers of this ustro woke up in his hut and he heard the Ostro calling, he heard the ring, and he realized what was happening. So he rushed out of the house, he started running in the opposite direction. But because he couldn't take the ring off, the ring was constantly calling, so the Ostro was running after him. And he had no hope of surviving because the night was long, there were many hours left of the night, and he was getting tired, and the ring kept calling out. So finally, after running for as long as he could, getting really exhausted, he reached a bridge. And this is when he had a brilliant idea. So he hadn't thought of this before, but now he realized that what he should do is he should cut his finger off together with the ring. So that's what he did. He cut his finger off and he tossed the finger with the ring into the river over the bridge, and he kept running. So the Ostro, it was dark, he wasn't really paying attention, he was still just following the calls. So he didn't realize where he was, and he basically just leapt off the bridge after the ring, following the calls. He fell into the water, made a big splash, and was never heard from again. And this is how this one man managed to save all of the other brothers who hadn't been killed and eaten yet. And that was the end of that Ostro. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for watching this video. If you would like to follow along with this project and see more videos with different stories and with different parts of the project, please follow this channel, follow the Yana project Facebook page, follow my Instagram, basically all social media channels. I will link them down below, along with the pages of the Bulgarian Cultural and Educational Centre Scotland. Thank you once again and have a wonderful day.